The year is 2025 and the world is bracing for a new era of economic uncertainty. The global landscape is shifting rapidly, with nations reassessing alliances and trade agreements in the wake of recent geopolitical tensions. In North America, a storm is brewing that few saw coming, threatening to upend decades of stability and cooperation. A new trade war has erupted, this time, not between distant rivals, but between the United States and its closest neighbor, Canada. The two countries, long considered pillars of economic partnership, now find themselves on opposite sides of a rapidly escalating conflict. President Donald Trump, in a move that has sent shockwaves through global markets, has imposed a sweeping 25% tariff on a wide range of Canadian goods. At the heart of this dispute is nickel, a critical metal for batteries, electronics, and the green energy transition. The tariff is not just a number, it's a direct hit to industries on both sides of the border. This isn't just about taxes or trade balances, it's a bold political maneuver that threatens to unravel the trust and cooperation built over generations. The handshake agreements and historic treaties that once symbolized unity are now overshadowed by suspicion and uncertainty. The U.S. administration claims the tariffs are necessary to protect American jobs and industries from what it calls unfair competition. But critics, including economists and business leaders, warn that these measures could unravel the tightly woven supply chains that define North American manufacturing. Factories that once relied on seamless cross-border trade now face delays, shortages, and rising costs. In Ottawa, the mood is one of outrage and disbelief. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, standing before a sea of reporters, vows a strong and reciprocal response. He promises that Canada will not back down, and that every option is on the table, from retaliatory tariffs to legal action at the World Trade Organization. The Canadian government is rallying its allies and preparing for a prolonged standoff. Meanwhile, U.S. industries that depend on Canadian imports are scrambling to adapt. Automakers, electronics manufacturers, and even small businesses are suddenly facing higher costs and tough choices. Some are considering layoffs while others are searching for alternative suppliers, often at a much higher price. The new tariff wall has disrupted the once seamless flow of goods across the border, creating bottlenecks at checkpoints and sowing confusion among logistics companies. Truck drivers wait for hours, shipments are delayed, and uncertainty hangs over every transaction. The ripple effects are being felt from bustling ports to small towns that rely on cross-border commerce. Nickel, a metal that was once obscure to most, has now become the flashpoint for a crisis that could reshape the US-Canada relationship for years to come. As both nations dig in for a prolonged battle, the world watches closely, knowing that the outcome could redefine not just trade, but the very nature of international cooperation in the 21st century. Nickel isn't just pocket change, it's the backbone of modern industry. It powers electric vehicle batteries, enabling America's green transition. The defense sector relies on nickel for jet engines, armor, and advanced weaponry. It's also essential for stainless steel, found in everything from appliances to skyscrapers. A tariff on Canadian nickel means higher costs for countless U.S. businesses. Disrupting this supply chain threatens jobs, national security, and America's technological edge. This humble metal is anything but insignificant. Nearly half of America's nickel comes from Canada. There's no easy substitute. This vital metal, essential for everything from electric vehicle batteries to stainless steel, flows across the world's longest undefended border in a supply chain that's been quietly reliable for decades. Nickel isn't just another commodity, it's a strategic resource, woven into the fabric of American industry and national security. The US has only one nickel mine, the Eagle Mine in Michigan, and even that sends its output north to Canada for refining. The lack of domestic refining capacity means the US is deeply reliant on its neighbor for the high-purity nickel needed in advanced manufacturing. American industries, from automakers to aerospace giants, depend on this cross-border system. Without Canadian refineries, the US would struggle to produce the high-grade nickel required for electric vehicles, jet engines, and military hardware. This partnership has enabled American innovation and growth, but it's also created a hidden vulnerability. The Trump tariffs risk fracturing this integration, exposing a critical weakness in America's industrial armor. Suddenly, the smooth flow of nickel is threatened by political decisions, and Canada holds the cards in this high-stakes game. U.S. automakers and defense contractors can't quickly find alternatives. Building new mines or refineries takes years, and other global suppliers are either unreliable or already stretched thin. The supply chain can't be rebuilt overnight. Ottawa's leverage is real, and the US is forced to confront its supply chain dependence. Canadian officials now have a powerful bargaining chip, and American policymakers are scrambling to secure new sources or negotiate a solution. The assumption of unbreakable stability between the two countries has been shattered. What was once a seamless partnership is now a source of anxiety for business leaders and government officials alike. Now, the US faces the consequences of taking its northern neighbor for granted. The nickel supply chain, once invisible, is now front and center in national debates about security and economic resilience. The nickel choke point is suddenly a national crisis, forcing America to rethink its approach to critical minerals and the alliances that sustain its industries. Canada hits back, hard. Ontario Premier Doug Ford threatens to halt nickel exports, targeting America's biggest weakness. Canadian mining leaders say they can easily sell their high-grade nickel to Europe or Asia. The US market is important, but not irreplaceable. Canada's ability to pivot undermines the effectiveness of US tariffs. The threat expands. Electricity exports could also be cut, putting pressure on US states. Ottawa's message is clear: economic integration is a two-way street. If the US blocks Canadian goods, Canada is ready to retaliate. American industries are now caught in a high-stakes standoff. The tariffs hit American companies and workers first. A 25% tariff on nickel could add hundreds of millions in costs for US manufacturers. Automakers face higher prices for EV batteries, threatening jobs and competitiveness. If nickel supplies are cut, factory shutdowns and layoffs loom. The defense sector warns of delays and rising costs for military hardware. National security is at risk as critical materials become scarce. Companies may pass costs to consumers, making cars and appliances more expensive. The policy meant to protect American jobs could end up destroying them. Everyday Americans will feel the pain at the checkout. With Canadian nickel in jeopardy, the US scrambles for alternatives. Other suppliers, like Australia and Brazil, can't fill the gap overnight. The US lacks domestic refining capacity. Even new mines would need foreign processing. The result, a seller's market, with prices rising and competition fierce. US firms may be forced to buy lower quality or less ethical nickel, risking product performance and reputation. The rush for new sources could undo years of progress on responsible supply chains. American manufacturers face chaos, higher costs, and tough ethical choices. The nickel crisis is now a global scramble. There's one clear winner in this trade war: China. While the US intended to strengthen its own industries and reduce reliance on foreign resources, the reality is far more complicated. Instead of weakening China's grip on critical minerals, these new tariffs and restrictions have inadvertently handed Beijing a powerful advantage on the global stage. US policy has aimed to reduce dependence on Chinese minerals, but these tariffs do the opposite. By making it harder to import minerals from trusted partners, American manufacturers are left with fewer options. The intention was to boost domestic production and secure supply chains, but the reality is that the US simply doesn't have the capacity to meet its own demand for critical minerals like nickel, cobalt, and rare earths. If US firms can't buy from Canada, they'll turn to Chinese-controlled supply chains, especially in Indonesia. China has spent years investing in mineral-rich countries, building infrastructure and securing exclusive contracts. As a result, even minerals that don't come directly from China often pass through Chinese hands at some point in the supply chain, giving Beijing enormous influence over global markets. American dollars will flow to Beijing, giving China leverage over critical US industries. Every transaction strengthens China's economic position, allowing it to invest further in technology, infrastructure, and global influence. This financial flow not only boosts China's economy, but also gives it the power to dictate terms and prices, putting US companies at a disadvantage. This undermines years of alliance building with Canada and other partners. The US has long relied on its close relationships with allies to ensure access to vital resources and maintain a united front against economic rivals. By sidelining these partnerships, Washington risks eroding trust and cooperation that took decades to build. In a crisis, China could restrict nickel supplies, holding US industry hostage. If tensions escalate, Beijing has the ability to cut off access to essential materials, disrupting everything from electric vehicles to defense manufacturing. the US would find itself vulnerable, scrambling for alternatives in a market dominated by its chief competitor. By alienating Canada, the US risks trading a reliable ally for a strategic adversary. Canada has been a steadfast partner, sharing resources, intelligence, and values. Pushing Ottawa away could drive it closer to Beijing, further weakening America's position in North America and beyond. It's a geopolitical blunder that hands China a victory, without a fight. In trying to outmaneuver its rival, the US may have inadvertently strengthened China's hand, reshaping the balance of power in ways that could last for generations. The US and Canada are economic partners, not rivals. Tariffs and threats risk lasting damage to jobs, security, and prosperity on both sides. The solution isn't escalation, it's smart cooperation. Strengthening North American supply chains and investing together is the way forward. Blunt tariffs hurt both nations. Strategic collaboration builds resilience. Protecting this partnership is an act of wisdom, not weakness. Only by working together can the US and Canada remain global leaders.